Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of Hayden. It is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. It is 5 o'clock. Calling this meeting to order. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes. We have a quorum. Sandy, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I would be honored.
Thank you.
Let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for additions or corrections tonight, council, we do have ITD here tonight, and they are going to make a short presentation under 2B. There is no action item associated, so I'm pretty safe adding that. I do apologize for the oversight. Rolling into the consent calendar, we have the approval of 2025 Flanagan Ventures doing business as Wiley E. Waters Contractual Services Agreement. We have the approval of the 2025 to 2030 Hayden Little League Park Use Agreement. Approval of the 2025 the Peak Health and Wellness Center Contractual Services Agreement. Approval of 2025 K Tigers Taekwondo Contractual Services Agreement. Approval of Justin and Heather Arts Deferred Improvement Agreement. And approval of bills for payment. Are there any questions on the consent calendar regarding consent calendar items tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I have
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
It's in the finances. I'm sorry I couldn't get a hold of anyone earlier. On page 15 of the financial report, the invoice register, I was just wondering what the $610 for CSEC music license was.
Every year, the city contracts with a company for copyrighted music that can be played at our public events.
Okay.
And in order to do that, we have to purchase licenses, and they're used at those variety of events throughout the city for that particular year. So this year, I'm guessing it's all the Hayden Days as well as the park events that we have here, so, and elsewhere.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other
That's all.
questions on the consent? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the consent calendar as read. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 2, presentation. We are blessed tonight to have the mayor of Hayden Lake join us, Lee Zink, and Lee was on the Historic Preservation Commission for 6 years, I'm rounding, 2018 to 2024. And Lee, I want to extend a thank you, a sincere thank you for contributing to our community, even though you live next door.
Well,
Lisa.
thank you, Mayor Davis. It's good to see you again.
Yes, sir, good to see you. How are we?
That's right.
We'll make the newspapers.
Big news. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, City, do you want to introduce ITD?
Sure. So as council recalls, back in December, there was a request that the staff reach out to not only ITD, but also the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization to help bring forward information on the progress of some of the transportation systems, in particular the Hayden corridor. And so here tonight, we have Glenn Miles in the back. He's going to speak first, and then we have Carrie Ann Hewitt with ITD. Glenn Miles is with KMPO, and then he will probably have to sneak out shortly after his presentation, so if you have questions, please ask them before he's done speaking. So with that, Glenn, thank you.
I brought process. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit. I'm prepping for her to give her update on the Pell. So there was a question about kind of the history. I'll give a short history of it. So to do that, I brought with me today a couple of studies This one, like archive quality, 1997 to 2017, a transportation master plan for Kootenai County. It was done by JUB engineers, and it looked at all the transportation issues facing our region between 1997 and 2017. It looked at all the different alternatives, different roadways, the highways, of what improvements need to be made by 2017. Improvements to 95, improvement to Government Way, Highway 41. And one of the things it said was that the Hutter Corridor needed to be developed as a facility to provide some growth and some where people could go besides those locations. That was followed up after that, a 2003 study that was conducted by KMPO and ITD called the US 95 Corridor Study, basically another look. And that looked at what can be done on US 95 in terms of the growth and development that everybody anticipated. And it was very far reaching. It looked at what could we do across the river on 95, what could we do on 41. Basically, it was a redo of the 97 study, came to the same conclusion that something needed to be done to connect Interstate 90 and the Hutter alignment in the future. Followed up by the 2009 study that was done on the US 95 Transportation Access Plan. So in the last several years, we received a Fast Lanes grant. It was about $10 million to make improvements on 95. Those improvements were a result of the study that was done in 2009, looking at what we could do to make US 95 and Government Way and Ramsey more efficient. Still working on that with the lights, but with the lights on Government Way, getting the new funding all the way from Harrison up to Prairie. Those lights are being installed now, so you're going to see some hiccups while they're installing them. But that'll make them to be able to interconnect with 95 and Government Way. So they're working more as a system rather than independent utility. In 2009, there was the follow-up of the 2003 study, which was the right-of-way needs for the Hutter Corridor, which took a look at a wide variety of options, all the way from is there still something we could do in 95, all the way over to Greens Ferry and some of the alignments over there. That concluded the Hutter alignment needed to have something done to it. And then the last one was done in 2021, where we modified the north end of the Hutter alignment through a public process because of the single point urban interchange that was placed at Highway 53 and 95. So we had to move it so that it would more closely align with where you could meet the spacing requirements of 95. So that brings us to where we're at today, which is the ITD board, once the 2021 update was concluded, they provided funding to move things forward. And we were looking at it, we got a lot of comments, and I think there were great comments to say, hey, let's just not look at Hutter, let's also look at some of the other east-west corridors, the north-south. How could we make a more systematic improvement so that there's betterment across Prairie in both north, south, and east directions? And that was the genesis, going from the alternate 95 Hutter Corridor analysis, environmental analysis, to the planning and environmental linkages study, the Pell study, that Carrie Ann's going to talk about now. So that's kind of how we got there and what's going on with it. And we're about, 2 years into the Pell study? Yeah. So I'll let Carrie Ann tell you about that, but if there's any questions.
Glenn, it's two things. Apologize going first, council. First, thank you very much for the support again for the Ramsey Road extension. You guys were all great helping us out.
Oh, yeah.
The main thing I want to communicate here, and that I'm sure you're aware of, but in case you're not, when the Hutter corridor was planned, decisions were made by previous council, decisions were made by people who bought and sold land with the promise to develop said land. I think today, 2025, Hayden's biggest concern is that development as it's happening along what is a 2-lane road, if for some reason the Hutter corridor doesn't turn into a 4-lane road or some systematic thing is being built, and you just described making more than just a bypass, but a system. If that's not developed, we're going to be stuck with a influx of new homes, traffic, and again, Hunter's a 2-lane road.
Right.
Prairie is honestly the only road that's, to me, properly built for Hayden. The rest of it's pretty bad. And I know, I mean, I'd love to see Hayden Avenue on West go 4 lanes, but the bottom line is, we can't have Hunter just say a 2-lane road and then dump 1,000 or whatever, I don't know, whatever number of homes that are built on there. We will ruin our community, our city. It's bad.
Agree 100%.
I've been to the open houses, and this may be for ITD, because I believe that the ball is really in their court right now, more so
Yes, it
than,
is.
more so than KMPO. So maybe I'll just give a heads up on the question that I'm gonna ask, and it's what I keep asking, and we keep hearing dates going all the way back into the 90s from, I guess, the origination of the idea to early 2000s and so forth. And as the mayor pretty much alluded to here, we have people who own that land out there they want to develop it now. And we're sitting on our hands, and have been sitting in our hands, and we're basically hearing that this slow-moving process, the reality is it could be, who knows, what, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, how much longer are we going to have to sit on our hands is kind of, before we can either say yes or no.
Right.
Because in my own personal opinion, from the involvement that I have, it's causing a lot of problems, the length of time of the process.
I think what we're looking at is a wave of homes, and what we'd like is the roads to meet the wave and not have the wave come crashing, and then 20 years later, we think about putting a road there.
Yeah. Well, if we wait 20 years, there won't be a road there. But if I might, could hand something out?
Yes, sir.
So I affectionately refer to this as the measles map. And I do that, so I just remember what it is. Whoop, sorry. I thought there was a stair there, so these are building permits in the unincorporated area of Kootenai County from 1990 to 2024. And there's extra copies there. And when we talk about transportation and we talk about the need for the Hutter corridor, some of the east-west arterials that need to be beefed up, I agree Prairie's, what should be going all the way across the prairie, but also what needs to be done with 53. This is a map of the county, and all the dots are color-coded by the decades that they were approved. And the purple ones are those that were approved between 2020 and 2024. And what you see is
Yes, that's Hutter.
whether or not people build in Hayden, they're building up north, and you can see by the dots that they're there. But they're going to try and use a transportation system irregardless of who owns it. And that's why making these decisions on this Pell study are so critically important. Well, when no one has a crystal ball as to when, what I can tell you is if we don't resolve to do something, then there's no reason for the legislature to provide funding to do these types of projects. So we need these things kind of put to bed and put to rest and not have another study put on top of another study. And get to it. We had the same problem with I-90 widening. It sat dormant for 15 years. Everybody knew what needed to be done. And then all of a sudden the Tecum bonding came forward, and in March, they're going to go out to add for the widening to 4 lanes in each direction of I-90 to 41 to 95. So you've got to have your act together, not just Hayden, but the community, in order to make a cause for it. And I know people don't like government funding and all things like that sometimes until it's helpful. But the reality is there are programs for transportation projects that are competitive. You have to compete. We do very well in competing at the national level for funding. And some of these grant programs don't even start until you hit the $100 million mark. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to make these improvements, whichever come out of the Pell study, to be funded. But number one, the region has to decide what they want, and they have to be willing to go for it to get it.
All right. Thank you. I have a couple questions. President Trump has recently said that no more grants, no more loans. So how is that going to affect what your plans are or what the plans are for this area? I mean, we don't know what that means exactly, but it sure sounds like he's going to cut off grants. And he said that this isn't going to affect individuals. So I take this as going to affect cities and states and,
So I'm engaged with Washington DC quite a bit, and there's a lot of, well, what does this really mean? But he's very capital oriented and he's very transportation infrastructure oriented. And my point is you make the business case for doing transportation projects. And I think if any of the things that get through grant and aid programs for transportation are an investment both for the nation and the community, his team is very much in tune with the freight and goods need for freight and goods movement to keep commerce going. So I think of all of them, transportation, the fact that the Secretary of Transportation got confirmed today, kind of shows we're in the hierarchy of things he's wanting to get done is a good indicator.
and one last question, and thank you for being here. With all the planning that's gone on, and you've got 3 or 4 studies there and a lot of brilliant minds putting all this together, what consideration are you looking at on this growth and what effect it will have on our aquifer?
So water is not my gig. I'll be first to tell you it's important. I've studied it years back, but what I can tell you is that map is probably the biggest hindrance to the water quality of the Rathdrum Prairie because they're all on septic tanks. The building permits out in the areas so you've got almost the population of what the Spokane Valley was in the 60s is now sitting north of Hayden.
So are you considering the stormwater off the roads that will be now going over into the aquifer? Or are you thinking about those types of issues?
It's a big issue for all transportation projects because of what's coming off the roads. The filtration system and the swells alongside the roads do a good job of filtering them within the first 3 feet to keep those things out of the aquifer. Every project has to go through DEQ and EPA standards for being put in. And I think as long as everybody follows the rules and the proven science, I think there's less of a problem. I think you have a bigger problem with direct injection, which is what a septic tank is.
So we have had meetings with the Aquifer Board, and we also have coordinated with DEQ as well. And so we'll be continuing to work with them when it comes to the design process and stuff like that, so.
I know with your projections are for lots of growth, and I know, Glenn, you provided us with those projections in the past. And that's my point is with all that growth, what's all that growth going to have on our aquifer? That's my big concern.
I think there's 2 schools of thought because I was talking to a guy that keeps an eye on the aquifer, and he says it's right now, there's very little change in the depth of the aquifer. Nobody knows the full extent of the aquifer, but I think when you get, like you're doing with water reclamation and putting it back on the ground and things like that, rather than putting it into the river, you are putting it effectively back into the aquifer. So I think it's going to take management and management techniques to do it.
Other questions? Glenn, thank you. Carrie, you're up.
Do you want to, you can stay up if you want with questions and
okay, I'll
stuff like
stand.
that, if they happen to. Mine is just real quick, just to kind of give you an update on where we're at with things. Let's see,
F5's the fastest way.
F5. Okay. So the project purpose, a lot like what Glenn was talking about, the purpose of the transportation recommendations are to improve safety, mobility, as well as system reliability and resiliency for the current and future movement of both people and goods as Northern County and the Rathdrum Prairie continue to see rapid growth and development. And this is basically our project area. We're going from state line to Government Way, and then I-90 all the way up to Highway 53. So what is a PEL? Years back, they kind of shortened the term that a NEPA, it's like the environmental document. And the NEPA is, with the environmental document, you have to explore all sorts of different alternatives before you move forward with the project. And they shortened that timeline that you have to complete that. I believe it's like 18 months or something like that. And so in order to explore all these different alternatives in a thorough and due diligence manner, we're looking at this through the Pell, and we're taking our time, to look at it thoroughly. And what we do is we kind of funnel it, and we have, at first we had like 50 different alternatives, and we met with the community 2 years ago, and we asked, what are your problems? Where are you experiencing congestion? Where are you experiencing issues? What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? And we had 50 different alternatives that we had. And then we're at this level 2 stage right now. We've narrowed it down to about 13 alternatives that we're looking at. And those are in the booklets that basically you have right now. And from those 13 alternatives, we're trying to narrow those down to 3 or 4, which will be the level 3 evaluation. And from that, we're hoping to narrow it down even further to 1 or 2. It might be more, but from that, that's what we're going to carry forward and look for funding to proceed forward with.
Carrie, question. So when we see the bottom and it says that this study is to recommend future studies, it's not so much studies, but actually getting funding at that point?
It's actually getting funded.
Because it makes it look like you're doing this big process to then kick off another process of more.
Yeah, it's actually to do the NEPA from that point. And so like the NEPA, I guess it's not actually a, sure.
This is the point where you know enough to know what you need to know and going into the NEPA study so that you can actually go after competitive grant programs and go to the state legislature, because you've already winnowed it down and you're not asking them to give you $100 million when we really don't know where we're going to do with it. By this time, you'll be down to the more detailed stuff.
Okay.
So this is kind of an example of the level 1 screening that we had. You can see on here, we had like 54 concepts, and then this is kind of like just a summary of it. And then I'll just, if you want me to go through these real quick, I can just kind of give you just the,
Just ours.
so,
Yeah, just ours is fine, unless you're going to
Hutter,
tell
I
us
think.
you're going to push Hutter over to the 41 or something.
nope. So, I mean, basically, there's the 13, and what's going to happen from here basically is that we're going to pick the 3 or 4. There should be information coming out in the spring where we'll have another meeting that will have this narrowed down. We're in the process right now of, we're looking at, like this was a screening matrix that we had, and then this is another matrix that we're using. And so we're taking all these different documents and trying to compare data, and we'll have another public meeting this spring, and then by this summer, we hope to have it narrowed down to the final alternatives that we'll move forward with.
Carrie, do you have any idea what year we might see a shovel on the ground?
It all depends on funding and like what we'll be able, it's gonna,
What about best case and most likely case?
Can I answer that? Because
yeah.
Sure.
so.
And if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, but what you do know is what historically has happened in the past. In my career, I've seen projects lay dormant for 5, 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden, a congressman or a senator or a governor says, I want that done. And within 6 months, it's out to bid because they had the work done to do it. A great case in point, I know it's in Washington, but when Tom Foley was Speaker of the House, he was getting a lot of heat, even from Idaho residents, about having to use 395 from Ritzville down to Pasco. It was a 2-lane piece of junk road that had a lot of fatalities on it. He called, his chief of staff called me and a guy at WashDOT and said, so how much is it going to cost to make this happen? And so we kind of put a pencil and kind of big numbers, And so we told him, and it showed up in appropriations bill the next year. And then the next year was under construction. So it can happen, but again, we knew what needed to be done. We knew how it needed to be done. just money is usually the trick.
We know somebody on the inside, right?
I'm about to pretend to be Senator Crapo Risch. What's it going to cost to get it done? If you get the phone call tomorrow morning, either one of you, and they say, well, we see this, whatever it is, number one, which is your likely choice of the 13 here? And let's just say it's Hutter. Is there even an ability to give a ballpark? What's it going to cost to get it done?
I'm so bad at numbers, but
200 million?
I'd say you're closer to 300 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that isn't out of the realm of possibility. I know people like, for an example, I-90, that's two $100 million packages. They're going out to bid in March. They weren't even on the books 3 years ago. So that's why I say it can happen, but you need to know what you want to do, and you got to have everybody on board.
We appreciate you guys for doing this study and for letting our council know what's going on.
And there's another
Tom.
question there too.
Glenn, Carrie, right? So I've actually seen the full Pell presentation because I'm on AMPO. Since we're talking about Hutter, and I think for the benefit of the public that are here in the audience, could you elaborate a little bit on details? I recall there was like a couple different variations of what Hutter could look like. One was more like an express version, one was more like a local version.
Okay, so I can do that.
Yeah, and bring it up on the map and,
D and H is a D.
Yeah, D would have traffic signals.
Right. So D is US 95, the son of US 95 and 41. So they're basically like that, where you have at-grade intersections with signals, stop and go traffic, probably a tremendous amount of desire to have curb cuts, for businesses to get on and off it, like we're seeing at 41 right now, where people are wanting to take what is a relatively smooth running road and wanting traffic signals now every half mile and plugging it up. So that's what Hutter is under Alternative D. Alternative H, as it was originally conceptually developed, would be a limited access, higher speed divided highway that would be looking like 95 north of Lancaster. But it would have interchanges every mile, and you could have overpasses like the ones where there isn't interchanges, so people get across it.
The interchanges would be where the blue dots are.
Right, so you're looking at Pole Line Hanley, you're looking at Prairie, you're looking at Hayden, you're looking at Wyoming, Lancaster, and Ramsey.
I'm sure all the people hauling lumber up and down the 95 in the summer would love that.
I love that.
So there was a study done, and the logging industry indicated that they're losing about $1.6 million a year in delay because from 95 at the river up to the mill.
Yeah. Any more questions? Both of you, thank you very much. Very informative.
There is one question.
Well, I was going to let Art know, if you want to make a public comment, we can move on to public comments. Go ahead, if you just got a quick question, go ahead.
Okay, of all the 13 possibilities that you've got, that's alternative, you're at stage 2, right?
Yeah,
Okay, to get to stage 3, is that gonna be summer, spring? I just need the timeline a little bit. March.
yeah, it'll be this spring sometime. It'll probably be around March, yeah.
Okay, will you accept, citizen professional comments on, all of, which of the 13 might be the best? Can that be done now, or is that over with?
The comment period on that is
That's
closed.
closed.
We're going to narrow down. There's some alternatives in the 13 that probably marry up well together to make the system more efficient. And so the next round will be looking at the narrowed, winnowed down alternatives.
So that you won't accept,
We spent 2 years with open public
I
comment.
mean, you, from now on, you won't accept any professional comments of citizens about which one might be the best
No.
one to go to.
the alternatives that get narrowed down, those will be brought up.
Or open house?
Yeah,
We'll have an open house, Art.
yeah, there'll be an opportunity to provide comment.
Yes.
Yes, there will be an opportunity to provide comment.
When will that opportunity be?
Probably in March.
March.
It'll be in spring sometime.
So March, then people can make comments about your narrowing.
Yep.
Or whatever.
What's been narrowed down. Yep.
Okay, I just want to know what.
Yeah, because we basically almost got, like, everything's almost in a document already summarizing the 13. So it's already almost.
Thanks again, both of you. Okay, so we keep the ball rolling here. We're going to move on to visitor public comment. I don't see anybody who's filled out a card, so I'm assuming we have no comments from the gallery tonight. Okay, I'm hearing none. We're going to move on to welcome Stephanie Satterfield, who's going to give us an Arts Commission report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our first quarterly Arts Commission report for 2025. The Arts Commission for 2025 consists of 5 commissioners: Terry Lee, David Lou Cummings, Lori Carlson, Nancy Jones, and myself. The commission voted and agreed to participate in 2025 events. I will be at the Arbor Day. That's really not an Arts Commission thing because I volunteer at the Arbor Day, but we will have some information if people are interested that I'll hand out. We're going to participate in the Hayden Days Parade. And then in September, the Arts Commission is going to host a fall and youth festival program, Friday night frights in October. And then, of course, we are going to participate in the Hayden Lights Parade in December. The commission, we're always looking at ways to make money because art is expensive. And it's, it is what it is. And so one of the ways that the commission has chose to do this is to do the fall and youth festival, which Hayden really doesn't have one besides some of the nurseries have one. So we are really excited about putting this together and hopefully it becoming an annual event. We're going to start our workshops for this in April. Our meetings are the first Wednesday of every month at 3, unless it's a holiday. So at 2 o'clock, in April, we'll start having workshops to put this together. We invite you and the public to come. Your input is important, and we're going to need a whole lot of volunteers. So, to make this successful. So please join us here in the chambers, 2 o'clock, starting in April, and we'll have a monthly meeting until the September event. We are still waiting on delivery dates for the benches for the Come Together project. The city liaison is in contact with the company, receiving updates. That's all I have on that, but we are hoping to get them to kind of incorporate that as well during the September festival. The commission has also decided to pay for the new Dusk to Dawn signs. If you don't know what those are, they're the signs below the dragonflies at the parking lot that talk about the artist and the dragonflies, and they were getting pretty faded and hard to read. So I contacted the original artist, Will Turnbull, and he is making us new ones at a minimal cost of $70 that the commission has agreed to pay for. We are also, as a commission, unanimous to have residents of Hayden give us feedback for art in Hayden. We're in the process of creating a public art survey. Art is the eyes of the beholder. People love the dragonflies. they hate other pieces of art, but it's, we want to explain what those pieces of art that they don't necessarily like, explain the meaning behind them and why they were selected by the previous commission and council. And also to, get the knowledge of the citizens of Hayden, what they know about art, what they want to see, what they, want the city to represent. So we're working on that. And then I am very personally excited to have the city employees display their art in the fourth quarter at the art gallery at City Hall, which is the halls of the city here. We're waiting for legal.
Not that I know of.
To approve for a first, second, and third place cash prize for the employees. This is a great way to keep the gallery full and to maintain good morale and community among the employees. And then last, Terry Lee is still wanting to donate to the commission one of his paintings as a fundraiser. Our liaison is working with legal on the logistics. Other than that, the commission thanks you all very much for the opportunity to beautify Hayden with art. There is nothing like art to bring a community together.
Thank you,
And
Steph.
I stand
Any
for
questions?
questions. Yeah.
Hi, yes, thank you for what you're doing. I was looking over minutes from past meetings just in preparation, and is this Fall Youth and Festival program going to be an Oktoberfest with a beer garden? Something in one of your minutes talked about that.
Well, we're working out the logistics, but we are looking at kind of like Hayden Days.
Mm-hmm.
They have things for the children, they have a beer garden. It's a way to make money. But of course, the children aren't going to be, in the beer garden or allowed to be, but we're looking at doing maybe themes, some different themes were brought up. One theme that we talked about was a German theme and teaching polka to the kids and then having a little presentation or something, and different things. So all of this is still in the very big infancy of this. And so please come to the workshop starting in April. Your input, questions that we may not think of, that you can come up with, then we can reach out and find the answers to those and figure it out. But the hope is to do all of it at one time because it is such a huge project and people have lives. We are a volunteer commission, and if you have so many things during the summer, I'd rather do one big thing and do it right than have a bunch of little things and, not maybe be so successful at it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, anything?
No, thank
Anything
you.
on the board side here?
No, sir.
Thanks,
All right,
Stephanie.
thank you. Oh, see you January or July.
Okay, we're gonna move on to reports. City administrator, anything to report?
I was able to get you guys it's only 8 pages report. It just simply was what I was hoping to get at the last meeting, which is a summary of work done in 2024. And Mr. Mayor, if you'd allow me a chance just to quickly summarize some of that. You'll see in the memo, starts with Public Works and talks about some of the total acreage added. I will acknowledge that what's not included in here in the undeveloped section, and I missed this, was the Hayden Canyon Park, which is under concept designs right now, and that's an additional 16 acres. And then you'll see the total amount of acreage, and then the swale area for maintenance that we're currently at around 2.3 acres of swale that we manage within the city streets. And then within the sewer and streets department, that was in the parks department. Now in the sewer and the streets department, I think it's noteworthy to comment that the city adopted or accepted 13,424 linear feet of new road, which is basically 5.08 lane miles. So that brings our total amount of lane miles to approximately 185 within the city. When we talk about budget and we talk about the needs to fund transportation, one of the areas that you'll hear me beat the drum on is what we should be doing in O&M, how we should be strategically using our dollars to lengthen the life of the typical city street. And I'm not an engineer, but I'm gonna comment on a few things that I've been trained on in my, within the profession that I serve here with the city, and my history was that you really want to be coming in with some kind of surface treatment about once every 7 years, and that surface treatment generally will be a shot or two of chip seal. When you make it through the rest of my memo, you'll see that the city completed 8.1 miles of lane miles of chip sealing. When we look at the total number of lane miles, what we should be getting on average a year is somewhere around 26 and a half in order to meet our obligation of trying to create a barrier movement on top of that existing street to protect the base of that street, the sub base of that street. So we have some work to try to do to get to that place, and that's going to take some commitment from council and the community to prioritize how we manage our streets going into the future. As we move into the sewer department, you'll see that we flushed around 85,000 linear feet of sewer. This is generally what we want to do is try to get to all of our sewer mains and flush them so that we don't have backups occurring. And we work with the Harbs staff. They have the Vector truck that does that. And then the city accepted 11,500 linear feet of new sewer line and 551 feet of forced main line. So it proves the point that we're growing. So.
Yeah.
The other area within the sewer department that they're consistently trying to improve upon is looking at places where we have I&I or inflow and infiltration to the sewer system, and that protects the capacity at the sewer plant. So when we have I&I on that's water entering in our sewer mains, our sewer system, we're not treating that, so we're using up capacity at the treatment plant. And you'll see that the staff's been working on trying to identify those and fix them where necessary. On the community development, I just make a quick acknowledgement that the city issued 188 residential permits, and of which 159 of those were single family. The remaining were townhomes up for the most part. The total new construction value added in those 188 homes was around $58 million. And then overall, for the non-residentials, we did about 45 building permits and increased the non-residential building permits at 21.5 million. And overall, the city took in just a little under 1.2 million in impact fees. So those are impact fees that support public parks and our streets. And then in the recreation department, I think it's noteworthy to state that it's a strong program. We are constantly seeing our program sell out, and shows a high demand for the recreation facilities that you guys are supporting through the budget. So with my memo is the supporting documentation that you can read. I did not include the Excel spreadsheet with the sewer and streets information just because I didn't know if it would. I included that within the text of the memo, not as a separate attachment. Three other comments I want to make. Ramsey Road project is scheduled to start somewhere after February 10th. They're having their first kickoff meeting tomorrow. And so pretty exciting to see that come to fruition. When I was in Boise last week, I went down for the AIC's Day at the Capitol as well as the ICMA statewide conference. I did meet with LTAC while I was down there, Layla Kral, the executive director, as well as some of the staff, and they're all really excited to see this project happen. So kudos to you guys for making this project happen. I thought I just was shared with the mayor right before we started the meeting tonight that I have been working with both our prosecutor at the city of Post Falls as well as the prosecutor at the county to address enforcement of speed limits, 35 mile an hour and lower. Right now, or at least when I came on board here, the interpretation was that under 35 miles per hour. There was a court case recently that challenged the ability for officers to pull people over and issue citations or potentially criminally prosecute them in the event of that stop. They found other components that led to maybe a higher degree of enforcement, I guess. Long and short of it was the state law says that you're required to have a engineered study completed on your streets in order to enforce any speed limit under the 35 miles per hour. And we were able to, with the work of our staff, bring forward an argument to both our prosecutor and the county prosecutor, which they supported, showing that we have done that work in our planning work with our transportation plan and our ordinances. So I just got confirmation today that they'll start enforcing that. And they've provided to the deputies that clarity that they will continue to support those under 35. So it's good work done by your staff. So, and that would conclude my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Lisa?
Yes, I have one, Lisa. Trying to find my notes. The maintenance of the roads with adding chip seal every 7 years or so. So obviously we fell short of what would be an optimal goal. What was the limiting factor? Was it manpower or capital?
We contract our chip sealing program out, and when you do that, there's costs, additional costs than doing it in-house. In my previous employer, we did it in-house, and I know that's a challenge with our staffing, so I think it's a combination of both.
But didn't we just purchase a machine to do exactly this?
So the machine that we purchased was in order to help in between chip seals to fix cracks. It's a
Okay.
crack sealer, essentially.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those maintenance tools that helps us bridge the gap between when we've last surface treated to the next surface treatment.
So back to my original question, since now I understand we contracted out, so was it a lack of money to get the job done, or was it like, sorry, we're full, we can't accept any more work?
I don't believe, it was my first year coming in here, so I was learning my way through this, but it's an area that we have, I think, looked at other ways in order to lengthen the time frame in which we do that treatment. 7 years is the best management practice. Ours is probably much longer than that, but we're making progress. We can do better though, and we'll look to try to prioritize that in the future, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Related to the city administrator report, I'd like to remind anyone in the audience and anyone watching on the internet that we have a vote for the Hayden Canyon Park concept. Details are in the lobby of City Hall and also on our Facebook page and our website also. Moving on to law enforcement. I don't see Captain Smart in the room, but we have a deputy tonight. Didn't recognize you in the grays. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
And before you start, I want to say thanks for the benefit of the public. We've had 2 armed robberies in the last week, and we've had up to 11 units responding into Hayden. And so, again, I will say it as long as I'm here, I sincerely thank you all for protecting our community. Thank you.
So I'm Lieutenant Sippard. That's one of the things I was going to touch up with you guys. First of all, we apologize about the stats. As you know, our records department moved from the south office up to the Hayden office, and that took about 3 days. And so we'll get those to Lisa, and you'll probably get the month of January and February all together. So we apologize about that.
It'd be, just correction, it'll be December and January.
Here we go, yeah. In February is when you'll get it, yes. Sorry about that. As the mayor mentioned, we did have 2 armed robberies in the last 3 days. With that, there was an incredible amount of additional resources that were brought in to the city. Specifically, we had one this afternoon. There were over 11 patrol deputies from just our sheriff's office assigned, only one of which is a Hayden deputy. Idaho State Police and Coeur d'Alene City Police were also tasked with assisting us in that deal, so it took an incredible amount. Likewise, on Saturday evening, we had a armed robbery at a local gas station that took a tremendous amount of detectives, K-9 units. In fact, you had 3 K-9 units one of which was, we had to request from Coeur d'Alene City to assist in that detail, and that followed through the evening and early morning of Sunday before the suspect was apprehended, so.
Most
we've had a
importantly, in
busy
both
few days.
cases, you got the bad guy.
We did, yes, all in fairly quick time. But again, there's a lot of stuff that you don't see beyond just the flashing lights. It's the follow-up work and detectives and special investigation unit. And so, Mr. Roder, I know that that was kind of a concern of where your Hayden deputies are, but there's a tremendous amount of support services just that you've experienced in the last 3 days on two. And those aren't the domestics and all the other stuff that happen on a daily basis. So incredible amount of stuff coming in. And then Lisa, you mentioned it, you should be, and Mayor, you should be hearing from Captain Smart tomorrow. They did get some further information from the prosecutor's office on the speed. That was late this evening, right before the meeting, so you guys should be getting that.
Yeah, it was coincidental to me asking the sheriff and the undersheriff
Yes.
to go with me to the county prosecutor and stand on their chest until I got an answer.
So you have that, and I'm sure that that'll be ready for you. So
We're excited to
unless
see-
you have any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions for LT?
Just excited to see the support of the 35 mile an hour and under.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
looking
that's
forward.
good.
Yeah, so don't speed in Hayden, everyone. We're
Ready to
gonna,
go now.
I have a
my wife's
question.
the most scared, to be frank.
I have a
Sandy, go
question.
ahead.
With those armed robberies, both were apprehended. Were they both local people that,
One of your
public?
suspects was a local Hayden resident.
okay,
The second one, I don't believe he was. He was in the area, and he's kind of a transient from a few different areas. So I don't specifically know where the home of record is on him.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Any reports from council, boards that you are attending? Anything? KMPO, et cetera?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes. So I mentioned at the last meeting that I was going to attend a meeting at the Office of Emergency Management about the emergency operations plan. And there were over 150 people in attendance. It was well attended, and many people made public comment. And the Office of Emergency Management has made 2 edits to the plan so far. And it looks like it's also going to go to Boise. And our state legislature is also going to be looking at it and how to ensure our freedoms during times of crisis. So I just want to
Okay.
report that.
All right.
I know Ed wants to speak, but Ed, would you mind if I piggyback on that?
No, go ahead, for sure.
Because I was there too at that meeting, and Mr. Mayor, I spoke to you personally about this, but for the public consumption, I wanted to repeat it, that I was frustrated by this because when the emergency operation manual came before us for review and approval, it was 261 pages, and I was only able to get through half of it in preparation for the meeting. So this particular issue, I missed it, and I regret and I apologize that I didn't have eyes on it beforehand. And I guess it was only because of some interested public participation after the fact that they did find these issues. So my point is that when we have lengthy documents like that for our in preparation for meetings, we need more time in order to be able to study them.
I think that's fair. And, when the agenda comes out, if there's ever an agenda item that is too onerous for the meeting, please call me, and if I need to remove it from the agenda, that I will. Or we could enter into talking about it during a meeting, and if there's an action item, for example, to accept it, we can always defer that to where you have more time. So I want council to know you have options. Just because something's on the agenda doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be solved that day. So thank you. But we'll definitely not throw 200-page documents at you the best we can.
260 to be precise.
Ed, you had something?
Yeah, I'm just like to make a comment related to Lisa's report and the building trends for December. This is available on our website and at any time. And it talks about a number of different things, but in particular, the thing I want to emphasize, because it's continually being circulated by certain elements in the community, and we keep hearing the term high-density development. 2022, 0. 2023, 0. 2024, 0 high-density development. So when you have people out there in the various forms saying that the city is approving and continuing to approve high density. Here's the facts, okay? And these are done each month. And you can either go online and find them, or you can come into City Hall and they will gladly, I'm sure, give you a copy. Know the facts. 0 high-density development in the last 3 years. Thank you.
All right, Ed. Council have any requests for future agenda items? Okay, I'm going to throw one out. I would like to, I've heard a couple of data points that point me to something I believe in. Matt has expressed a desire to see what our vision is or what we're working on in the future of the city. And I know Tom has brought up to me that sometimes he feels like council's the last one to know. So I would like to, in the next, say, 60 days, develop a workshop with council where some of the things we're working on are clearly communicated and communicated ahead of time. There have been some things that have come through council that I was surprised at the resistance because I thought they were great ideas. And I also think it would help get council in a direction to where we're more actively working on problem solving for our community, for our citizens. So I'm going to put that on myself and just ask for your flexibility here in the first calendar quarter to attend a workshop. And with that, we're going to move to a workshop. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to discuss the workshop 7A, which is an action item, SCJ Alliance Assessment of Comprehensive Plan Amendments. So we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock. Okay, council, we're going to start a workshop here to discuss the SCJ report. Start with the objective, which is using our staff memo of December 4th and the SCJ report of November 22nd, both 2024, to discuss and potentially agree on what recommendations to implement this fiscal year. There were basically 4 deliverables that were presented. And obviously, it's a funding issue, and there's no need really to debate things we might fund next year or the years on, because we can't obligate monies for next fiscal year. So in order to make this workshop efficient, I would ask you to consider focusing our discussions on what we want to fund in fiscal year 25. The first deliverable was an amendment, and I think, Tom, did you hand everybody a copy of the SCJ? It's also on page 2 of the agenda. It does articulate the deliverables of what the amendment is, so it's not just wordsmithing, there's an analysis and effect on implementing revised goals, policies, and vision.
That was my own work product, and all I did was put it together to kind of condense down. Yeah, what, like the minimum and maximum, plus, I'm an engineer, what do you want? That's
No,
my,
Brett, here's the thing, it's very colorful, so I wouldn't have assumed.
But on page 2 of the SDG report, it does specifically articulate the deliverables of each of the proposed options that we have.
right, but there's a lot of word fill there as well, and I just
Sure.
grabbed the stuff that I wanted to make sure was discussed, which was we got a minimum and a maximum range of dollars that this effort would cost, and
Well, the first one was 30K, and we did allocate money in the budget, of which I think Donna has advised we have about 9,000 left in the active budget.
I didn't advise.
As of the memo, I'm sorry, the memo I read from December said that.
Okay, sorry, that was a long time.
Maybe I should have just left that off, but, all right, so I think the first question before council is, do you want us to, in the next meeting, have an action item for you to approve us to engage STJ to implement the amendment option? Because I remember last meeting, we had the amendment option and we had the completely redo the comp plan option, and that one was much more expensive. So I made the assumption that the amendment would be the way council, that's the direction we want to row.
that would be what my preference would be, to choose the less expensive one, and maybe would require council to be more focused on exactly what it is that they spend their energies on.
I've been wrestling this in my brain, and I don't have an answer for it. I need a lot smarter people than I am to figure this one out. We have, I don't know how many developments here in the near future that are going to eat up a lot of developable land, large chunks of it. And I'm just wondering, timing. Should we wait until all those developments are done or planned out and then do an amendment, or look at revising the comprehensive plan? Because after that, there's not going to be a whole bunch of other land left, large chunks of land to spend a lot of money. And I think Ed brought this point up before, spend a lot of money where we don't have a lot of latitude because there's not a lot of variables left to work with. I'm simplifying this all, but I guess I'm asking about timing. You know, is it prudent to do, because I know we need to do updates, but would it be prudent to wait until those things are all into place, then analyze things, or to analyze everything and then they build it and it doesn't fit? It doesn't work, because those are big issues.
It's a good point, and I'll tell you my answer to that question. We had the citizen survey of 2022, was it?
Yes.
Where some priorities were communicated. And the longer that we run with the future land use map as it is today, and the longer that planning and zoning, in my opinion, is a little strong, the way the goals and policies are written now in the comp plan, the longer we leave things as they are, the more development can be approved under those parameters. where I feel our new goals and policies give council the flexibility you want to consider the environment harder, to consider parks and open spaces harder. It's literally answering the bell on what the citizens have asked. So the answer to your question is, of course, we can wait until more development's done, but that keeps the window open longer for the developers to come in and develop under the standards that I don't believe are compatible with what our citizens expect.
Well, let me do a follow-up question. So can we go through this whole process and get things in place in a timely enough manner that it will have an effect the way we would like on these new developments?
I would like to think as soon as we get the amendment in place, we've started that, so whatever time that begins, as opposed to the delay, it is what you're going to buy. Does that make sense?
There's the word. The other question I have is, where's the money coming from?
What was that?
I'm gonna shake Lisa upside down like this until enough comes out.
I mean, we have a range. And we got 9,000 left out of the 30?
Well, that was just out of a single line item budget.
Right.
So the more serious question, or the most serious answer is Lisa and I actually discussed some things in the budget today that I wanted to do this year that we're probably not going to do, that are in the general fund to help pay for this.
I don't.
The communications that we talked about putting on hold.
That,
It's some money.
it's,
I guess the answer is I can't give you an exact.
we will have to look at what we're not going to do or what we're not willing to do in order to fund this.
So what's the minimum that if we do something, what's the minimum that we will pay? And I think those numbers are in here, but you can tell me off the top of your head. And where is that money going to come from? That's even at the minimal. And then we have a maximum, and, you know, obviously, if we can meet the minimum, well, maybe we can do the maximum. So I'm really mainly concerned about also, you know, the timing. I agree that if we can have an effect on these developments, the way that the councils develop these goals and policy changes, that's a good thing.
Right.
But again, we have to figure out how to pay for it. So what is that minimum that if we go forward, how much is the minimum that we will pay?
Wasn't it 30,000?
30,000.
30,000.
Yeah, but I see 30 plus.
Well, okay, so that's the thing. So there's 4 deliverables that we discussed. And so I was kind of hitting the first one, which is the amendment. We can consider the transportation plan this fiscal year. We can consider the sewer master plan this year. We can consider the parks plan this year. I personally, again, you guys make the decisions. I don't know that we have this kind of money laying around our coffers. I'm pretty confident we can fund this. But you guys might want to be more aggressive with the budget. That's why we're workshopping this.
So if we do the amendment at 30 grand, but we don't have to do the other 3?
Correct, we do not.
Do we?
These are a la carte deliverables.
Pardon?
That's correct.
So does it dampen the amendment that we don't do the others? I mean, how critical is that we update those other 3 deliverables?
I think if we do these other deliverables in the next, say, 3 years, and we plan for them during the budget cycle, that's probably prudent. Because I believe these plans are all 2021, Donna?
So that, yeah, the long range plan, transportation, sewer, and then parks, they were all approved in 2021.
So these could hypothetically go to 2026-ish. There's no urgency to fund them this year. Again,
I think
just
the
put it
only
down.
urgency that you would have to invest in those plans would be if the amendment itself caused your impact fees to be affected by the lack or shifting of density to somewhere else. So, for example, if your amendment came in and changed your future land use map from a higher density to a lower density, and your impact fees were based off of what that higher density would be, then you likely would be over potentially burdening the impact fees for something that you wouldn't, you would need to amend. I would venture to guess, and I could be wrong because I'm not an impact fee expert, would be that if you're downzoning and you still have an impact to your transportation systems, you just have less people paying for that, meaning we're taking less impact fees in per household. And so we might not have to do that. That's something we just have to evaluate with the consultant as a potential output of the amendment to the comp plan.
Can we at the very least project the current future land use map? If not, I know we projected the proposed one that they looked at up there. So we have a visual to talk about, because I know that when it comes my turn, I'm going to want to point out some of this stuff that I feel is extremely salient.
Do we have it on the S drive somewhere?
To this issue.
So while she's walking up there, I just want to make sure that, so doing the amendment 1
Right.
could trickle down into these other deliverables to some point.
In the future years, and they would need to be done regardless. In other words, all of these 3 plans, and thanks for pointing that out, these are a la carte. Each of these plans is done routinely anyway, normally a 5-year cycle or thereabouts. So these would be something we would be discussing anyway. These are not necessarily driven directly by an amendment of the comprehensive plan this fiscal year.
But those 3 elements, because they have impact fees, is why then you would have to reevaluate.
An output of the amendment could be that you need to now make some changes to your transportation and parks plan. The sewer master plan, I can tell you right now, regardless, we're probably going to be having to do that because
Right.
as we brought on all the new expansion and systems, we're going to have to reevaluate our capitalization fee. So we're going to do that. We're probably going to bring that to you regardless.
Okay.
And there's there's not necessarily any urgency just because we do an amendment and the amendment does say, hey, we need to do the transportation plan. We don't have to drop everything we're doing. We can just say simply program it, budget for it, and do it.
And then somewhere in here, it said that the staff could do some of the work and not the consultant. Now, what would the staff do? Well, what work would they do and not the
I
consultant?
want a bonus.
So when we did the last comprehensive plan map.
Do you need to get to it?
I'm hunting. Did you find it?
No.
No, that's not, we did it in a, okay.
Yeah, but this, you can get to the regular answer.
Sorry, can't multitask quite that well. When we did the last comprehensive plan map update, staff worked with the consultant, but staff did 98% of the drafting of any proposed code changes that the comprehensive plan update required. So like when we defined mixed residential and mixed use uses as land uses in the comprehensive plan, then staff drafted those zone text amendments to the zone. So what I was basically, unless in the use of how we're updating the future land use map as part of the comp plan, we're introducing any new zones or any new language that we would need to amend our zone from. We believe that between Lisa's expertise and those of us in planning, we probably can cover those requirements for those zone code text amendments.
And that's what you're talking about. If the plan amendment actually does drive a need for
Correct.
code changes.
I don't know that it will.
And we don't know the.
Okay.
Which is also why, so in the STJ report, there is another option to pay for that. That's not listed on here specifically for that reason. So just for transparency, there was in the STJ report, a 5th deliverable that was offered. I think it was $40,000. And I believe that was work that could probably be done.
Correct. Much left. Keep talking. Yeah, I just have to.
This is their workshop. I'm just presenting the facts so we can make a decision and get direction.
But to answer, I think what one of your questions is going to be is can the plan amendment include the likely need, or include the amendment to the future land use map if there is one? And the answer to that is yes.
Well, I think I'll jump ahead here, but I was hoping it could be put up because with regards to, we already have the zone code text density maximums or parameters for mixed use. So we aren't going to have to change them. We have them for mixed residential. We already have the stuff. Nobody, I don't think in any of the proposals has proposed changing those densities on anything, changing any of the zone code text, saying, okay, well, let's just mixed residential, let's adjust that. Nobody's suggesting adjusting any of the current zone code text density parameters. Okay, so I don't see where we would have to change any of those things when it talks about zoning and development regulations, $25,000 to $40,000, when in effect, okay, those don't need to be changed. The goals and policies, I don't think are going to affect any of those zoning types or anything like that.
It's just where.
Well, yeah, just where they are. We're the proposal is to remove some mixed use from areas. That's the primary adjustment. And take, I believe, some of the infill was, that's why I kind of need to see it, was proposed to either change from mixed use to mixed residential, if not single family. So these are not changes that are going to require anything but. Okay, that's the current.
This is the workshop, what we had from the workshop. So I can't.
Okay, I know that when we.
Are you looking for?
Well, they put one, there it is, right there. Okay, may I approach the whatever. Come on in.
Can you enlarge that?
Approach the bench.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that part out.
Yeah.
I don't.
Control plus. And then you can close this, which will help. Close out.
Unless somebody has one around here somewhere.
That's the one you're looking for?
Whatever, yeah.
Or do you want the one that reflects PUDs?
No, let me see, bring that one down again, because that looks kind of, yeah, bring the one up, the PUDs, because that's what's going in.
This is.
Okay, this one there. Okay. Because this is pretty much what I think that the consultant ended up looking at. Raise it up a little bit.
I'm
Thank you.
working on it.
Thank you. If you notice, okay, we removed all the purple, okay, and all the purple that went up in there. And pretty much we're saying if we're going to have mixed use, which is this is the high density stuff, it's going to be along Lancaster. And what is currently right here, we already have those apartments right there. And thin strip along the major road of Hayden, okay? And most of this stuff is already in here.
And I think it's worth pointing out that the land use map as it sits right now, the mixed use goes deeper into.
Right.
So we've basically by 50% or so removed the higher density areas from here. And I believe this area here was.
Yeah, that was purple
mixed use.
also.
And now it's going to be commercial.
That's been removed.
So those are that's the simplest way we can say it.
Right.
The major change, and then as Ed said, all along here, I believe was purple too, right?
Right, and that's been removed. Now, this area down in here, here's those apartments, and I'm gonna go based on what I saw at a planning and zoning meeting here, so it's been made public. Hayden Avenue, Prairie Avenue, there's a school, it's 40 acres right here, and basically this area in here has already been before us, and I know that this area down here was before P and Z, okay? So, and this is again part of that annexation agreement that says you're allowed 4 acres, 4 dwellings per acre. There's nothing we can do about it.
So Ed, I think what you're suggesting is to ask the consultant to work backwards. To work from this planning, from this future land use map and say, does the visual of what we think we want align with the goals and policies we gave you?
They did that.
Well, that's one thing.
We did that.
But
And I'm not done. And then make sure that the chapters in your actual plan align with all of that. That's what you're asking them to do.
no, well, that is, but my point is, when we talk about having to worry, and I get it, the master plans do not need to be done. And it's what Matt kind of brought up, and what I talked about last time. This stuff's already in the pipeline here. It's already, some of it's been before us. I know at P and Z, there's another one down here on Prairie that's coming up. And the annexation agreement allows 4 dwellings per acre. This is going to be all 4 dwellings per acre, probably with, if the economy does whatever it looks like it's going to do, and what has already been brought forward. This isn't going to turn into mixed. This is all the sewer and the roads. Why are we going to spend money adjusting the master plan when in fact, by the time we get the master plan adjustments and all that done, this will be a done deal. So whatever the sewer and road will be, it better be what it is already, because these are being brought before us. So, by the time they complete all this, why? Why spend the money to have them make these adjustments to the sewer?
Well, and that's why I suggested with the master plans, we tackle those later.
Down the road.
Down the road.
Now, my main point is that the goals and policies, as you said, they want, and I think we already have looked at them to see if they align with, is that what I heard you say, Donna?
Well, to make sure that, because you're working backwards. Normally, your goals and policies go through your plan amendment and then to your future land use map. Your future land use map at the same time you did your goals and policies without amending your chapters in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. So now we've got to amend the
So
chapters
now
in
you
the
need to
middle.
amend the chapters in the middle to make sure that they align with the goals and policies you've already written and the future land use map you've already.
And that's what the $30,000, and that's the $30,000.
That's the $30,000
When
fix.
when you
Align the
say
chapters in the middle.
when you say chapters in the middle, you're talking about action plan, right?
No.
No, we're
Chapters in
talking
your
about
plan.
the chapters of the comp plan.
The chapters of the comp plan.
Okay, yep.
And how much, that's just it, how much adjustment to those, the verbiage.
It's not just the verbiage. If you look in the SGJ report, they're gonna do an analysis also to see what all the effects it has on all of our plans. It's not just changing words.
I understand that, but if you ask me, then this is the PUD that's going in already. It's already been approved. This stuff is pretty much, it's by statute and a rather previous agreement. What's going to happen?
You do not have a final approved PUD, by the way, so let's be really careful.
Okay. But the effect that it's going to have is already in motion.
I think the point that Councilman DePriest is making is that it's already in motion. It was approved under grandfathered.
Some of it, not all of it.
It's not affecting how we want to guide the future land use.
So again, if I could pull us back to our objective, what we're looking for from council, please, is some direction. Do we engage do we tee up for the next agenda the request to contract with SCJ to implement the comp plan? Yes.
How much have we spent so far on reviewing this comp plan?
20?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know.
I thought it was around 16.
16? Okay, so
Okay.
Money
And,
paid to the contractor.
what date was the final document given to us that have the goals and policies? What was the latest goals and policies we have?
When was it sent to the consultant? Is that what you're?
No, when was it given to?
Last spring?
Last workshop, was it?
Last workshop was on September 9th. Is that the final document we have?
Okay.
So I would like to see the results, the goals and policies laid out from our September 12th meeting before I approve anything.
We already have those.
Those are done.
We had the meeting. I don't see anything in print that gives the goals and policies that are going to be.
Is that available?
Yeah, we already had
It
those.
was sent to the consultant. Would be my guess.
Wasn't that in their
You can see them
report?
Tonight, or you're asking for them?
No, before I approve of anything, because I want to see, I haven't been given the goals and policies after the changes that were made the September 12th meeting. I'd like to see what's being
Part of
said.
our workshop with SCJ, when we talked, we went through those things.
It's not in writing. It hasn't been given out. Citizens haven't been able to see it.
So let's back up just a bit here. So you contracted with SCJ, they looked at your goals and policies, I think they made like 2 word tweaks in all of them, just to do some syntax changes. I'm probably gonna get yelled at because I'm not standing somewhere that I'm supposed to be, so I guess I'll move. You did a future land use map kind of conceptually with them, they kind of evaluated that. You're gonna, if you choose to move forward with them to do the amendments, as part of the amendments to the comprehensive plan, before the city council adopts that amended plan, it goes to public hearing for public comment. So they might have an open house in part of this conversation potentially to invite public comment related to kind of where we get this drafty future land use map that we've proposed. And then they'll do kind of an open house to that effect. And then this is generally what's happened in the past. Get public comment, finish up the plan, get really close to the final draft, come in and present the final draft of the plan at a public hearing. The public will get to comment again. And then potentially the council will adopt it or not, revise
That's all
it.
part of the.
And
that
that's
estimate.
all part of the.
But
go
for
ahead.
that to happen, again, we have to take the
part of
next step, which is
30,000?
to engage the
Okay.
SDJ.
I think the problem with this sort of evolution of a path towards where we are today is that it was never done. I think we always tried to get one step ahead. And so every time we get one step ahead, we have to go back and fill in the background. So right now you have goals and policies that have been vetted through council
Planning and zoning.
and planning and
council.
zoning. And then they've not obviously adopted, they were just simply agreed on through workshops. And then you consulted with SCJ to look at the impact of those. And now you're gonna have to go back and modify your plan to align with those goals and policies. Typically, a city that's going through this would start the other way. They would say, we don't know what we want. We're gonna go through and derive goals and policies. We're gonna go ahead and derive the language, and then we're gonna go ahead and derive a future land use map. You guys have sort of gone backwards at it. So it's not an easy place for staff to really set forth what we think is a reasonable next step without going back in and filling in the blanks, right? So that's where we're at now, and I think what you'll find is that when you want to do an update to a plan like ours, it's probably going to run anywhere between 30 and 50,000. We're going to be right in that target place to do the full thing. We're just not going to do it sort of in the traditional path. And so given that, if you can kind of understand how we've taken 2 steps forward, now we're going to go 1 step backwards, you'll see ultimately we're making progress towards the finish line, which is to deliver to you, council, a new comprehensive plan that's not significantly different, but will have some changes to it, and a new future land use map that you would then consider for adoption.
And in addition to that, you did utilize your springboard as that citizen survey was your springboard. Your public was speaking to you loudly. You said, we want more input. You put together a very robust survey that went out to them. They gave you very loud feedback, and you worked very closely aligned with the results of that citizen survey to redraft those goals and policies that have been vetted by council and planning and zoning. So yes, you kind of are going in a non-traditional path, but it's not that you haven't had public engagement. Your public engagement started this.
Yes.
And if the $30,000 is all of the things that she just described, I can live with that. As far as I'm conducting all the open houses and outreaches and all of that.
Well, that's also an area where staff
Right.
could provide staff time.
Right. And we have had the packet before, with the goals and policies. That's somewhere in there because I know I've got them at home type of thing, because in our workshops and with SCJ or all that, we have those. We have the final draft
Yes, we
that
have.
was considered.
Where's the final draft? I haven't
It's
seen
in the
that.
memo that you have that has those.
Went through those.
The memo is from September 9th. Then there was the workshop on the 12th.
Correct. They didn't redraft the goals and policies from that point forward.
But this doesn't have all the goals and policies on it. It has like some of them. It has,
There's
it's
I don't know how many there are, but
not
they're not.
clear. It jumps around. So I would like to see a clear chart with the updated goals and policies that are being proposed and put forward.
Okay. We'll see if we can find something different than that,
thank
but I
you.
think that's it.
And then also, the map up there, I have, if we could see the map again, I'm
Well, he
sorry.
closed it, so that was helpful.
I didn't warn you.
You can right-click that,
Right click this.
and then it should, there you go.
All right.
How about that?
Yeah, good job. I want to see if it's in
In
this.
fact, are those the goals and policies right
These are
there?
the public comments that came out of the open.
That's what it looked like on the,
Public comment about what?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I heard Donna say public comment about, and I missed the last.
That came at the public open house that we had.
Okay.
Which one did you want?
next one. For the PUD.
One of the super skinny.
The Ed one.
Right.
Okay.
No, back up, the one in the middle
No, that
there.
one.
No,
The one in the middle.
No.
With the PUDs.
I want the one that's showing right now.
This one.
Yes. Okay, so is this the one that's going forward to be approved in the amendments? Is this the one that's being?
We workshopped this at the workshop. There were some conceptual changes that were made to it during the workshop. We can
Okay.
find a copy that they reviewed as they took all of that information from the workshop back and did their analysis to get to your memo. And so if you're looking for a different version of this map that they looked at, we can get a copy of that to you.
Okay, because my difficulty is with the mixed use on developed properties. The upper properties that aren't developed along Lancaster and all that, I don't have a problem with that. But on already developed properties, putting mixed use on the future land use map is something that I wouldn't approve of.
What if they're already zoned mixed
Yeah,
use?
most of them are already developed.
They're not mixed use.
That's my, it was a question to you though. Are you okay with the ones that are zoned mixed use and identified as mixed use on the future land use map? And are you only talking about the ones that aren't?
Could you reword that, please?
Yes, you betcha.
Thank you.
So your future land use map is uses, right? It's uses, not zones.
Commercial and multifamily,
Yep.
everybody is really stuck on high density. That is not
That's
what
not
this
part
use
of Your
is.
land use map is not.
This
density.
use is commercial and multifamily, or a
Yeah.
combination thereof, but it doesn't have to be just multifamily.
So I was trying to simplify your point. Because you have some that are identified as mixed use on your future land use map that are already zoned mixed use and built out as mixed use.
Okay.
So are you talking about those parcels as well as the rest, or?
Talking about parcels that are not already mixed use, putting them under mixed use on the future land use map. If it's already developed, but it's not,
So you don't want a single-family residential lot on the future land use map
Converting.
identified as potentially mixed use in the future?
yes,
Or providing for the option to convert into mixed use into the future.
no.
Even though it would need a zone change?
Well, people can still ask for a zone change.
But they can't if it's not
conformance
in
with
alignment.
If it's not
comprehensive
on the
plan.
future land use map.
Okay, yeah. I'm, like, all that along Hayden Avenue there and along 95, all that's now showing mixed use. Most of that is commercial or residential or mixed.
Yeah, so the future land use map says their zone is what, they can only build out in the zone that they currently are.
Yeah,
The
yes.
future land use map says they might have the ability to come in and ask for a zone change to do something different.
And I object to that on
I think it is
already
important
developed.
to note on Hayden Avenue, since we're proposing to roll it back to the 300 feet of either side of Hayden Avenue, that when the mixed use was added to the code, it's because we removed the ability to have multifamily in the commercial.
Right.
So by removing it from the commercial, we needed to put it somewhere that it was allowed to be located. And therefore, we created mixed use, commercial or multifamily, or a combination of commercial and multifamily. So always before, full length of Hayden Avenue that was on the future land use map as general commercial, if you were in a commercial zone, you were allowed to have multifamily. This actually, by adding the mixed use in only a portion of that area, full length of Hayden Avenue, reduced, just like that, the amount of potential multifamily that you could have on Hayden Avenue from the old map to the new map.
And Don, I think.
Just as a matter of differences between the two uses that we changed in the future land use
I
map.
think he touched on, and I believe Alan even indicated it. On the old one, let's use Hayden Avenue, because let's be honest, that's the issue. Okay? Where the mixed use extended down farther into what are residential areas. And now with the skinnying up of it, it's really just along Hayden Avenue and whatever number of frontage, feet to the center of the road along Hayden Avenue, that it's not extending farther down into those residential areas. So those residential areas cannot be considered for mixed use development.
And while this is good conversation and we're just workshopping, I would like to, if I can, steer us back to the point of the workshop isn't so much to pick on streets and things, but to simply direct staff to tee up the next step. Again, all this is going to come before council again. You guys are going to see the goals and policies again. You're going to see the future land use map again. You're not authorizing us to just boom and change the document and now it's accepted city plan.
So I'm seeking affirmation here, Donna, because I heard you say we've just made tweaks. We've spent a lot of time emphasizing changes in the future land use map. But back at those workshops that we had last year with planning and zoning, we actually talked about some new adds to the goals and policies. Some of them that I championed, which was more of an environmental protection perspective. And I know that's verbiage in there. I just want to seek acknowledgement that that is part of whatever SCJ, super complex jet, would be authorized, would be directed to handle.
That is a great example of taking some, perfect example. Those goals and policies that you've suggested for the environmental protection pieces are more robust now. They're going to take the more robust nature of those goals and policies and read them through all of those chapters to make sure those chapters really meet your goal of accomplishing that environmental protection where they probably are a little lacking right now.
So great. And I'm going to piggyback on you and say that when we started this, and I was a brand new freshman councilman, I was learning on the job, and I remember goals, policies, action plans, code.
So goals, policies, plan, chapters, action plan, code.
Okay,
So you're
great.
close.
Thank you. I missed one. My point is I'm really super focused on code. And when do we get to influence that in this?
After your chapters,
Okay.
after your chapter amendment.
Okay. So they're not going to come back with like, this is our recommended language. It's just, we're going to, okay, this chapter regarding X, Y, and Z has got this new verbiage. Okay.
And it'll all be highlighted for you so you can see the change.
You know how much clearer things are after that one
Those are
interaction?
goals and policies.
Yeah, I knew that they were in
Yeah, I
there. I
did
just
too.
didn't go far enough.
But again, our goal tonight isn't to rehash
Print
these.
that off for her?
It's,
So she can take it with her?
Yeah, I don't know if I can print from
it's
here, but
simply,
I can
again,
try.
we're looking for council to either allow the city to tee this up so we
I
can
can
look
print.
for funding and potentially bring it back to you for approval or not.
I don't know where that goes, so.
If you tell me where it's at, I'll print it.
So what I heard Lisa say is probably going to be 30 to 50,000.
30's what's the
Well,
estimate?
30 to 50,000, but you guys already have 16 into this, so just remember that.
Right, but I guess I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that first deliverable
Okay.
and at 30 to 50,000. And with, the only thing I don't want is that, oh yeah, well, we forgot something and our consultant says, oh, we need another 25 or what. So I'm comfortable with 30 to 50,000 moving forward with the first deliverable.
I'll second that.
All right,
Yeah.
Well, it's
Okay.
a workshop, you're not taking action.
right.
Well, as far as disagreeing, I agree.
You want a consensus where,
That's what I'm looking
that's what
for
we're looking
tonight. I definitely hear Sandy's resistance, but I'm seeing 3 heads nod, and I think that's enough for us we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Which gives a couple weeks to get Sandy some additional information
Yeah.
that she can
Yeah,
review.
and we'll give you all the maps and all the
We'll
info.
have it for you when you leave tonight. Thank you.
All right, so unless there's anything else that I think should be what we try to accomplish. You don't know, any of the other deliverables, do I assume we're just gonna push those to out fiscal years? Yes,
I would
yes.
conclude on that.
That was what I was thinking as I reviewed this report from SCJ.
Sandy, any different? The other deliverables, pushing them out past fiscal year 25?
Yes.
The parks plan, the
Yes,
sewer
I would
plan?
do minimal, but
Yep.
I want to review it first, thank you.
All right, so that's the workshop, it's done. I think that was the last item on the agenda tonight. So we can call for an adjourn?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.